Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, Girl Gone Crypto. Today we have just a very breaking news, hot off the presses kind of interview. I've got Fredrik here, who is a witness for Hive, was a Steem witness, and is here just to answer some of the questions on everything that's been going on the last 24 hours with the most recent Steem hard fork. So, Fredrik, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. It's been a crazy day for all of us, really.
It really has been. Now, you've been building an app on Steem for 2.5 years, and so you've been very, very heavily involved in this community and been a big part of it, and your account was impacted by this hard fork. Now, I think that it's been kind of complicated and difficult for everyone to keep track of everything that has been going on. So let's just start at the very beginning. What exactly happened in this hard fork?
Oh, wow. Starting at the beginning, how much time do we have? Let's see. This hard fork, what's happened is that Steem witnesses, which it is important to note, is all voted in there by one account. The Steem and Steemit accounts are proxying to one voting account, and its stake in the platform is large enough to single-handedly choose who are the consensus witnesses on Steem. So it's basically Steemit's or the Tron Foundation's fork. Let's just make that clear. So they prepared this fork that what it does, aside from a few small things like reducing the power down time on stake tokens from 3 weeks to 4, it also, which is the big news, it also includes transferring all of the funds and stake tokens from a large list of accounts, including 64 accounts, holding around 26 million Steem tokens, which were then forcefully transferred to a unknown account, or its name on Steem was Community 321, but it was created a week before by an anonymous third-party creator. So nobody really knew who would own this account, who would hold the keys to this account, only that it would receive 26 million Steem from normal community members at the time of the fork. And we had this announcement post from presumably these Steem witnesses, or who knows really, because they are run by account names and accounts that are, some of them just hours old, some a few days old, and voted in with no engagement on the community whatsoever. So you just don't know. I mean, is this someone who wants to stay anonymous and just build an account, or is it just made by Tron? Because I'll refer to it as Tron from now on, because quite literally every single employee of Steemit Inc. have quit by now. So they've launched this fork that would transfer all of these funds, and so that's what much of the drama leading into today was about, because it was only revealed 24 hours beforehand, the fact that this fork would go down. There was no testing about it, no discussions about it, just this is the list of the accounts affected, some very vague reasons for why they felt that was justified, which we can come back to.
Yep.
And then, I'm sure we'll get to as well, things didn't turn out quite as expected, but anyway, that was the fork.
Okay, so let's go really high level for just a moment, because I think a lot of the people that are watching this video are going to be people that are part of the Hive community, but also people that aren't really familiar. And so when they look at that post and it talks about, it kind of says things like, well, this is just kind of what was done to us before. How is what the Hive witnesses did to Steemit Inc. stake different from this? Can you kind of explain that for people who aren't really familiar?
Well, the bottom line is that all of Steemit Inc.'s tokens are still there. I mean, all of the people that were involved or had disagreements with the Hive fork still have all of their Steem tokens there, whereas all of the people that they now wanted to go after have a zero on their balances on the Steem chain. So, of course, when Hive was created as a new token, it was created by most of the community that had a different view on where Steemit should be going, or that simply didn't want to be part of the vision or the direction that was being proposed, given the understanding that which people can have different opinions about the purpose of the Steemit stake. So when we created a new blockchain or a new token, there was discussions about whether or not we should keep all of the existing balances going into that. Now, for a question like that, there was some mixed opinions, and not everyone agreed, which is fine. That's called forming consensus. And there was even a vote on chain about who would be involved in it. So when that happened, certain tokens or certain balances would not be receiving their Hive on the Hive blockchain. However, it's very important to note here that that's a new token. So those people that were omitted, and there's been claims going out from everything from Justin Sun to those witnesses about how the Hive witnesses stole assets or did this or that. But let's be frank here. All the tokens that people had prior to the fork, they still own. They still own the same assets. They were left out of a new fork. Whereas in this case, they are taking tokens that those people owned beforehand. So it's a completely different thing. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to agree with everything that's been happening with the Hive blockchain. There's fine to have mixed opinions there, but let's not say that these two are equal, because they're really not.
So I want to look at a little bit more like a technical side of this, how this was physically possible, because I mean, how are they able to transfer this money without having the private keys to those accounts? I wasn't aware that you could write code to actually transfer money out of someone's account. Could you touch on that a little bit?
Well, I mean, everyone can run a version of a blockchain that is whatever they want it to be. And if the supermajority of witnesses run a code that says that the state of the database that they are running together, the blockchain, is of a certain nature, then it will be of that certain nature. So on a DPoS chain, I mean, theoretically, people can run whatever code they like, where token balances are whatever they want it to be. It's just a matter of getting people to agree to run the same version of that code. Now, in the case of the current Steem blockchain, that's very simple, because it's one party or one person that decides who is the consensus witnesses, and thus what are the data in the blockchain, and thus can alter the state of tokens. So I think that's how you get it done. Now, on most chains, something like that would never happen, because there would be no good incentives for those staked in the network to want to do something that would, if we assume a rational, moral market, would not fly very well. They would be harming their own interests. So that's a debate for DPoS that I think the whole crypto community should find some interest in, not just the Steem and Hive community, because it's interesting and perhaps controversial in the field.
So let's pivot and talk about the unexpected twist in the story that happened this morning. And that's honestly one of the things that I think people are most confused about. So the fork happened, the money was transferred to this account, and then I've heard a mixture of things about how that account got hacked and then the money was actually sent to Bittrex. Like, can you just walk us through what you know of what's happened there?
So naturally, many of us were awaiting this fork for many reasons. I mean, when there's a hard fork, things can go wrong. So if there would be, we were curious to see how it would go. But the fun fact is that they've just copied and pasted code that was already written by Steem devs, or not Steem devs, sorry, but former Steem developers that are now on Hive for for other purposes. And so the code worked. They literally just copied it and changed some account names around. And so what happened? When we were watching it, we didn't really know what to expect, aside from those tokens to disappear from our wallets and reappearing there. And then we were curious to see what would happen to it. And as you say, I mean, just minutes. So let's go back 10 minutes before the hard fork went live. all the keys of this account suddenly changed, and there's nobody knew who did that, and so at that point it was all in the hands of whoever changed those keys. Now your guess is as good as mine as to whether or not that's someone who on the inside of that group that didn't approve of what was going to be done, but who stayed in the group and then changed the keys. Whereas some have wondered that since it was a third-party website that had created the account, that whoever was providing that account creation service could recover the account. So it's funny because this could very well be our little Satoshi mystery about who exactly is the white knight that sees these funds back and sent them to Bittrex. Because all we've seen is that this account changes keys and then transferred the funds to Bittrex with a message saying these are the stolen accounts from the thieves, Steem witnesses during this fork. Please return it to the original owner's smiley face, together with 2 other tips to Justin's son and to one of the Steem witnesses saying stealing is bad. And after that, there's just been laughing and trolling, and people are in just a state of disbelief.
So I guess I'm so curious about that decision. So whoever took control of the account, clearly didn't agree with what was going on and wanted the funds to get returned back to these witnesses. And so why send it to Bittrex? Like, if they had the funds, why not send it back out to the correct people? Why trust Bittrex with it? Have people been in communication with Bittrex yet? What do you know about that?
So just first of all, you said the accounts of these witnesses. I think it's important to note that it's more than just witnesses that were touched by this and would have their funds stolen. I mean, just normal stakeholders that those doing the fork thought had been voting for the wrong witnesses or been expressing mean opinions on the blockchain or been downvoting them or in a very vague sense abusing would be touched by it. So it was a lot of different people other than just witnesses. As for why not return it, well, I mean, this is going down the rabbit hole quite quickly, but not returning it to the original accounts makes sense because many of them had already had those accounts frozen in a prior soft fork. So you might remember there was a soft fork 22.888 in which a list of accounts had all of their options frozen. So if the tokens had been returned to those, they would not be able to access those funds at all. So that's probably a sufficient reason. But more so, there's also been it's also been an instance of where some of these tokens have been ending up in a account by mistake when it was supposed to be powered down to Bittrex. It was powered down to Bittrex, and someone made a typo. So that would not have been solved. So there were a few good reasons to not want to just return it immediately. As to why Bittrex, it's a good guess. My sincere opinion is that they just believe that Bittrex is the most trusted party that would not get forked off. I mean, you're not gonna fork away Bittrex if you're gonna make a comeback here if you're the other Steem witnesses. Whereas, I think whoever did it just believes that Bittrex is probably the most honorable and the most likely to understand the situation and to honor the request of returning it to the original owners. Honestly, I think that's the rationale there.
Well, and one thing I'm kind of curious about as well that is almost funny to think about, but if it had been returned to the original Steem wallets, couldn't the Steem witnesses have just written another soft fork to steal it again? And so isn't it funny that it's like actually probably safer on an exchange than it is to
Yeah,
steal?
I mean, that's the really ugly part here is that the Steem blockchain as it is right now is quite literally a centralized database owned and run by the Tron Foundation, because they can single-handedly vote in the witnesses they want, and they are doing that, and so they can do whatever they want, which is which is the really scary part there, because I mean, just to give an example of the severity, since my personal account was not initially touched, there is a part of me that's like saying it's dumb to go on a show like this, because just appearing as a voice talking in favor of Hive could make you a target. And it's really that bad, because looking at some of the other accounts touched, I mean, many haven't done more than just voting the wrong way or saying the wrong things, and then they're like, we're going to confiscate. And that's the language they're using. We're going to confiscate or seize your tokens because you are harmful to the network. And it's ridiculous. And so we've already seen how easy they are with censoring opinions too. So it's a bit sad that your tokens are not safe, and also what you're writing is not safe either, which goes against all of the value propositions that Steem was supposed to have.
No, I agree with that. Like, even doing this interview, it's like, okay, am I going to end up on a blacklist? But I kind of feel like I already am, because I've tweeted some stuff about this in the past, and then my content gets removed all the time on Steemit. It's just, but it is really a sad state of affairs that something that was built out to be a decentralized platform is, you do have to worry about speaking anything slightly negative or controversial, and it is pretty crazy. And so just in terms of like where this whole story is going next, one thing that I've kind of wondered about, because pre the fork happening and the money getting sent to Bittrex and all of that, I saw some rumblings about a class action lawsuit, and then now, these funds, like that account was hacked and was sent to Bittrex. And so what are the legal ramifications? Like, what is the fallout of this going to look like? Do we have any idea?
Well, I mean, the theft already happened. I mean, people's funds were taken from their accounts, their wallets, and moved against their will to another account. That's not something that's even comparable to anything that's happened on this chain in the past. And so that's already happened. So there would be grounds for people to have disputes. Speaking for myself, I feel like I've come to the point where I don't want to sink more energy into it. My opinion from the very start was that the best thing for everyone involved was just for Steem and Hive to go its separate ways. Former Steem witnesses, now Hive witnesses, got everything they wanted in a chain without the centralized stake, and where they have the opportunity to build what they want. Whereas whoever is remaining on Steem gets what they want in the form that the Steemit stake can be recognized as not being a developer fund the way that some of the old communities thought that they was.
Right.
And they don't need to deal with the witnesses that they felt were acting poorly. So in my opinion, the best course would just be for each chain to just do its best, follow its own vision, and let the market decide which one deserves to live. So that's where I would have hoped for things to go. And I kind of hope that now, because we're kind of back to square one, let's face it. I mean, the original dispute, if you go all the way back to February, I think it was 13th, the dispute was, is the Steemit Inc. stake a developer fund? Should it be used in governance voting? We don't want to let these accounts vote unless we know that that's what it's going to be. And it was all a quarrel on the same chain. Now those who wanted to go in a different direction have been able to do so, and those that still wanted to be on Steem are still on Steem, and all of their token balances are exactly the way that they was. I mean, the only, if anything, Steemit, which has claimed that it's lost millions, blah, 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 which is a lie, instead actually have had months of free block producer rewards times 20 for different witnesses they've been running. So if anything, that on top of apparently owning a few million Hive when the Hive fork was made, that they were able to sell off, which was quite evident in one of the dumps. So I don't see why anyone would not have a reason to just be happy, even though I know that it looks like the Hive witnesses got the last laugh if they're now left with all these tokens back.
Well, I certainly hope that we are close to being able to put all of this drama behind us. It's been months of one thing after another. And like you said, just being able to say, hey, we'll go in our direction, you guys go in yours. So here's to hoping that that day will be here soon. But Fredrik, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show and just explaining all of this. I know that a lot of people have been confused trying to follow what's going on, and so this has been extremely helpful. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. It's all my pleasure, and I'm still wrapping my own head around what's going on because it's been so much in such a small time span.